7th, first meeting of the Finance Committee budget season. Welcome, good to see everyone. Yeah, it's pretty much almost a full house. So we have two new members. So let's start out by having one member introduce themselves, and then the rest of us will go around and introduce ourselves. And we'll start with the new member. Yeah.
That's me, the new
That's
member.
you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chuck Carney. Town meeting member, precinct 11. Lifelong Arlington resident, Arlington Public Schools. You know this guy, been growing up. I'm retired now, but I spent 30 years in management consulting for Ernst & Young and then IBM. Mostly IT, but the last 8 or 9 years, I led a cybersecurity team for a year, so I've got some experience in that. Live on Kimball Road, 3 kids, almost empty nester, so, couple of years. Thank you.
And Paul is our new old man.
Paul Mayer. On the committee from about 2005 until 5 years ago, I think it was, when we started spending most of the winter in Austin, Texas. We were getting into the snow, but since it stopped snowing, we're moving to Austin. Yeah, that's right. It's snow. I worked for the weather company, actually, with weather.com, phone.
Get your fixes.
Yeah.
You have inside information?
Get a little more detailed forecast.
He creates the weather.
Welcome back. We want to just quickly go around the table introducing ourselves to the members. We'll go this way. I'll start with myself. I'm senior chair and representing Precinct 19.
And I'm Peggy Bliss, representing Precinct 16, and I'm over, I look over the school budget.
Paul Jones, precinct 14, and basically puzzle spreadsheets.
Jeff Graham, precinct 15. The assessors. Regular collective postage.
Jordan Remy, now precinct 2. This is my 3rd year on the committee, and we do DPW and facilities.
Charlie Foskett, precinct 10, and I work on the finance group with Gopher, responsible for the assessor and
Insurance.
Hi, I'm Dave McKenna, precinct 21. Sophie and I do the government.
And Sophie Miliazzo, I'm at-large member. This is my 4th year, precinct 4, but I precinct 10.
Michael Reardon, precinct 9, and retirement.
Good for you.
Great.
I'm Dean Carmen, precinct 20. I reviewed the school budget. And on a random aside, I'm happy to have Paul back because in 2005 I joined the committee because he talked me into joining the committee. And then he bailed on me for a few minutes. And now, it's nice to be back together.
Grant.
Grant Gibeon, precinct 5, doing water and sewer. I've been on the committee longer than I want to admit. Then welcome, John, and welcome back. Well, see you.
John Griffin, at-large member. This is my 3rd year on the committee. I work on the public safety budgets, police, fire.
So I'm Annie McCourt. I don't know how long I've been on the committee, but sometime previous to COVID. I am representing precinct 13, and Rebecca and I work together on health and human services, libraries, and all the related enterprise funds for human services, and then also the record.
And I'm Rebecca Duncan, and I'm from precinct 7.
Yeah.
Darryl Armour, precinct 12.
Paul taught me everything he knows about public safety budgets and must have taught me well, because I haven't asked to have me reassigned. You could welcome back. Welcome back.
Jennifer Seuss, precinct 3, and my 3rd year on public works, facilities, and waste. Done.
Josh Lavelle, precinct 8, and I work with Peggy and Dean on the school budgets. I believe this is my 3rd year also.
Al Tosti, introduce yourself.
Okay, Al Tosti, precinct 17. I work on Minuteman, and I don't even want to think about how many years I've been on the committee.
Thanks. And Tara.
Tara Rowney, secretary, and I also live in precinct 17.
I should have said, I'm representing precinct 1, but I live in precinct 13. Yes.
So while Tara has the floor, we have some sad news if some people don't know it. Tara is just hanging on to get us onto the right track until we can find her replacement. She has another job. Well, I'm just done.
Oh, yeah, well, I've always had like a day job and just my job, I do, stuff with the stock market, so I have to wait until the stock market closes to do a lot of my work, so it just sort of pushes my work into the evening and it just makes, getting here more difficult, yeah.
So we're trying to find a replacement for Tara. She has agreed to stick with us as long as she can until that happens. But until then, we need to be mindful of her time. So I think everyone knows, and new people, we have tried to abide by this policy that anyone who's coming before us and asking for money needs to get their materials to us at least 48 hours before they're going to show up. So that gives our time to get that material out to us without being too much of a crunch, and it gives us time to look things over and have the questions before the meeting. So I would like the rest of us to hew to that rule for ourselves. When we are presenting our budgets, try to either get the material to Tara way ahead of time while we still have her, or take it upon yourself to make sure that you distribute it to everyone yourselves way in advance. So that would be, and I think we should just keep trying to do that even when we get a replacement, even someone who has some time. For everyone's benefit, it's good that we get the materials out soon without having this flurry of 6 o'clock on a Monday evening flurry of emails.
Does distributing ourselves mean we just put it on a SharePoint and send an email?
That's fine, yeah.
Do we?
Get materials for insurance budget on SharePoint. You can find it, or you could send it in an email, or both.
Do we bring paper copies too, or does?
Yeah. So this brings me to schedule. My plan is to have in-person meetings. Unless some emergency, something happens, like a major snowstorm or something like that. I want to have in-person meetings. If you are attending, like El Tosti is tonight, just to be able to hear what's going on and be able to speak, fine, but you need to know that you can't vote. Because if you vote, it then becomes a remote meeting, and then we have to go through the script, and then we have to take attendance by roll call, and we have to take every single vote by roll call. We all remember how painful that was, and how it just took up a lot of our time. So be aware of that. And the other thing I have to try to do is, last year I kept you on a test. We started around this time of year. We ended our last real meeting on March 25th or so. And we were able to do all of our business. And I was even able to give you Valentine's Day off, and then the Wednesday of President's Day vacation week. I'd like to do that all again, but I can only do that, you all, to what you did last year, which is really lots of vacation. I was really impressed with how everyone got their budgets done and where it was presented, and completely, and very efficiently. So that's the goal, and I hope everyone is on board with that. Now, things will happen, we'll just have to adjust. But if we can plan on doing our final business the 25th or the 24th, whatever that Monday is, that would be great. Because that gives Alan Jones time to get out the spreadsheets and everyone check their numbers, everyone check their head counts. Then it gives me and Alan time to finalize the report, and then get it to the printers, and then get it out with the select board and the development reports to town meeting members. So we were able to do all that on time last year, and I think it worked well. So let's try to keep to that schedule, which means the schools, ideally we'd like the schools in that week before. Now they're gonna balk about that because they did that last year. But they have to understand that we have an obligation to get a report to town meeting. And we have to get it to the printers, and we have to get it to the printers with a certain amount of time. See what you can do between now and then to get them in on, by that week before, the Wednesday before, that's the 19th. Yeah, see what we can do. Also, by planning to finish our business on the 24th, it does give us another meeting or so, if something does come up, and we have to re-go down. So, again, I think it's a good idea if we can try to aim for that. So those of you who need to coordinate with other people, like Al Tosti, Minuteman, if you can get Minuteman in fairly soon, do you know when you can think you can get Minuteman in?
Well, I told them, early March is the time when we hear the big budgets. And I'm going to call them tomorrow to confirm.
Great. And Al Tosti is again going to be our warrant review officer. He's going to get a little draft warrant, go through it and make sure that the articles we need in are in, and then also to review to see what articles we might want to have people come in and talk to us about. Thanks, Al, for doing that. Capital planning is coming in on March 12th. Annie, if you could check with the arts and culture people to see if they are asking for more money or whatever is going on with them, and if they need to come in, I'd stick with them on the early side. Sophie, I know you dealt with the disability people, same thing. If they need to come in, you can arrange it, or arrange somebody to come in, or whatever you need to do to get that budget.
Christine, could I just ask for clarification? Are we having anyone who's asking for an increase in anyone over a certain limit come in for committees and commissions, or only those asking for an increase?
Well, that's a good question. Our policy is that anyone who's asking for more definitely has to come in. But we've also had a discussion about the big budgets, like the arts and culture. How do people feel about the other big water bodies we have come in, no matter what? Any other committees or commissions that get a big chunk of money that people think they should come in?
Did arts and culture come in last time, or did we just see a report from them?
I think Annie, we just had a report.
That's a report, right? That's what I feel, if I remember.
No, I think last year they came in.
Did it in all?
I did, but it would seem to me like we should just get a report in unless somebody's.
There's no change.
Yeah, if there's no change, I don't see a need to have them, the reports are pretty clear, they got amended.
That's my.
Yeah, I think those are really the big ones, everyone else. It's not a whole lot of money. Less than $10,000, just for everybody else, so let's keep with that. And, we're gonna notify the other boards and commissions that if they're looking for more money, they have to come see us and give us the materials and try to get them in as early as they are able to. Town managers tomorrow at the police station. Not tomorrow, Wednesday, at the police station. And one last thing about, in terms of moving us along, and thank you for those people who have already reached out and reminded people. You not only have to look at your budgets right now, but you have to look at everybody else's budgets. And if you have any questions on anybody's budgets, reach out to the person or the people who are responsible for those budgets and get them your questions. The idea is that we want to eliminate or at least reduce the back and forth that happens. So when someone like Rebecca and Annie are presenting the library budget, they want to be able to ask the library director all of the questions and not have to go, come here and present and have someone say, well, can you find out this and that and back and forth. So look at the budgets and send people with questions. Obviously there'll be questions when people present a budget, that's fine. But if you know in advance, you have a question about this item, try to get them to ask the question so that can be efficient in approving budgets. All right, so that is that. Have we heard from?
Let me see if anyone's here.
Can I ask a question? Where do we go again to get the actuals? Because that's really crucial for our budgets.
We literally just mentioned you, so from the, you from the historic.
Steve Gallup from Historic District.
Steve, that's nice to meet you in person. All right, well, we are ready for you.
Okay, sorry, we're late.
No, you're not late. You're not late.
You're not late at all. Why don't you stand up here?
Okay.
Would you like a chair?
No, it's okay.
Okay.
Easier to stand here than to
So we have your budget. You've gotten it. You see your current budget and your budget list. So you are looking for an appropriation of $8,000?
That's correct.
All right, so why don't you tell us why you need that?
Sure. So from the Historic District Commission, we, under Town Bylaw 40, NGH 40C Town Bylaw, are required to oversee the historic districts of town, of which we have about 350 properties in all of those districts. Try to maintain the architectural gems that we have in town and preserve some of the capacity in districts. Whenever there is a change to the exterior of the house that's visible from the public way, we're required to have a formal hearing that needs to be noticed. So we have legal expenses that needs to be noticed. We have to send notices out to all butters and other interested parties. So we have a significant amount of advertising, legal expenses, as well as just logistics of running all of that. We have no resources directly from the town to do those things. We hired an executive secretary to help us. We're all volunteers, our executive secretary, so budget here, $280 stipend per month. We would like to go to $100. That is a pittance for the work she does for us. I would estimate she's probably putting in 20 to 30 hours a month, and sometimes more than that. And I don't know if people know Carol really well. The other thing about Carol is she helps everyone. There's the historic district commission, there's the building department, there's sometimes a lot of confusion. Carol's the go-to person for everyone to resolve those issues. And we just want to make sure we're sitting here and now we're well insured. But it's a very crucial part of our budget. And the one new, really an ongoing project that we're trying to do also is just replace some of the signs that identify historic districts. They've been there in the past, and through the years have been, there's one around Central Street that's so faded you can't read it anymore. The other ones that have been taken down by cars or trucks or someone else. So what we've done is found someone who does very economical hand-painted signs, two-sided, for about $600 a piece. We've worked with building department and talked to them about an agreement for them to supply the posts and to do the labor when they have time available or no rush. But we'll do it with town resources to try to minimize the cost as much as possible, but not do it crowding out anything else, just as we have time. And we'll do it slowly over time. It doesn't have to happen tomorrow. But like I said, we have 7 districts with 355 properties. Some of those districts, like Mount Gilboa, has probably 6 major entrances into the district. We like to market a couple of them, maybe a few more over time, just to give people a sense of place and a sense of pride where they are.
So you're looking for $8,000.
Yes.
Questions?
Steve, when was the last time, or have you recently done even a postcard mailing to all the owners of these 350 something properties to remind them, hey, you're in the historic district?
We do that every year. We send out a postcard, bright orange or some sort of color saying, hey, welcome to the district, here's some information, here's our website. And this year we also saw $150 on here. We are doing some more community outreach. We're going to reserve the community room for the community center, invite everyone in just to answer questions and kind of do a little bit more outreach and education. We also, if there's a vacancy on the commission, we have 1 representative from each of the districts, and then we have 5 at-large members, an architect, a realtor, so on and so forth. If we have a vacancy in the districts, we send out mailings at that time as well, reminding people and soliciting other people to join in and help the commission.
Great.
Yes.
Do you have any idea what your backlog is and how reasonably you turn issues or requests?
In terms of applications that come to us?
Yeah.
We're required to, we have a meeting once a month. We have to advertise those, so we have to get something by the beginning of the month, so we have time to get into the advocate and then get the mailings out. But we hear, I think 95% of the hearings within a month and a half. We're required by law to have a hearing within 60 days of receiving the application, or the application is considered to be approved. So we move forward as quickly as possible. And what we also, just to keep the process moving, we strongly encourage people, especially on bigger projects, new construction, additions, something else, come in and talk to us ahead of time on an informal basis, so that we can give them some feedback ahead of time, and the application process tends to go much faster. If there is, there are instances where there may be new construction, where we may have to have a set of hearings, so those hearings may be continued for 3 months, maybe 4 months, just because there are a number of issues that come up. But that's the exception, not the rule.
Thank you.
Other questions?
So I think it's a $2,000 increase from last year, I think.
From the appropriation last year.
What have you run into where you couldn't do it because you'd run out of money?
So I wanted to get 7 signs this year, and build that back to 4 signs. And we haven't done as much outreach. We like to do more of the outreach, have the community sessions.
Grant, did you have anything up?
Yes, I did, thank you, Madam Chair. 2 things actually. So your executive secretary, she had extra time
Oh, heaven forbid that I volunteer her time for anything else, I think I might lose her.
All right. Thanks. The second.
She is wonderful though, I cannot say enough.
Yeah, I
for
know
what
you're
she does for
sort
the
of
town
sort of
in
market.
so many different ways.
We're sort of in the market, so I appreciate the accolades about it. Hopefully, can do the same. It's sort of a third rail, but how much in your hearings, how much control do you have or influence do you have over tear
Teardowns, so within the districts, their demolition is not allowed unless we approve it, say it is appropriate. So we have allowed for demolitions, especially for houses that are non-contributing structures. You may be familiar with the, years ago, there was a ranch on Pleasant Street that got removed and the house was moved to that location. That was something we allowed because that was preserving another house from somewhere else in Arlington. There's another ranch at 149 Pleasant Street that really doesn't have any architectural. It's not to say the ranches aren't of their own time. There are some houses down by Spy Pond that are of that vintage. Also, there's a very modern house up on Pleasant Street that I can't remember the name of the house, but it was owned by a Nobel laureate at Harvard who recently passed away. They totally restored that house.
Roy Glauber.
Professor Glauber. 149 Pleasant Street, there's a ranch that we agreed to have replaced with a larger structure. It's gonna be a 3-unit house that will fit in. It will be a colonial revival, Spanish colonial revival house that I think will fit into the district really well and complement, and it will have one accessible apartment and 2 other condos. But in general, we try to preserve structures within the district. That's why the district.
I did notice that, well, there were a couple that I think are in the historic district that were in fact demolished. So when you mean contributing, is that a factor? Like there was one on Warren Street that was.
That's not in the district.
Okay, there we go.
We don't have control. Those are houses that are on the historical inventory that have a protection of a 1-year demo delay, which is in this environment not a whole lot of incentive to not preserve the house. But that was not under our jurisdiction.
Understood. Thank you. That's good.
So, thank you. What is your relationship to accessory dwelling units in the district? You know, we passed laws in town meeting in the last couple of years about being able to build accessory dwelling units. Do they come under your purview?
They would. Any structure on the property within the boundaries of the district would come under our purview. Quite frankly, they haven't come up before us yet. We had kind of the equivalent, 159 Pleasant Street. There's a old farmhouse right on the corner of Gray Street that has a barn to the left. That barn was falling down. That has been totally restored. That property was set up, but that has been made into a separate residence. Not really an ADU, but it's taking the existing footprint and adding more housing units. And we don't have jurisdiction over interior, so if people want to do interior ADUs or do an addition to allow that, I think we would see it as that's perfectly appropriate as long as the design fits into the district.
Thank you.
Other questions? Have you talked to town manager about your increased budget request?
I did, and my apologies, I had not really done all the numbers into the last week, so I had talked to the town manager's office, told them just before Christmas, we thought it was gonna be $1,000 increase. As soon as I realized I was gonna be asking for 2,000, I did let them know, so they are aware of it, but the town manager's budget, as you received it, has only 7,000.
Yeah, Steve, when was the last time an historic district was added?
We've had a number of additions along Pleasant Street. So the Pleasant Street district was originally along Pleasant Street itself. The most recent expansions have gone up Academy Street and along Maple Academy, and then a couple of the side streets off of Pleasant Street that kind of go over towards Academy that were kind of holes in between Jason and Pleasant that we filled in over the years.
So 2 years ago, what?
More than that, it's probably 6 or 8 years ago now.
Thanks.
We talk to folks all the time, and that's part of the outreach. We have man a booth at Town Day. We talk to people about forming a district. And what we've said to them, and we're happy to work with you, but this really has to be neighborhood led. People in the district have to want to do this. We're not trying to force anything on anyone. So I've had informational meetings. It's just hasn't happened recently where there's been a groundswell. Something that happens like on Orange Street sometimes causes people to rethink that and think, there may be something valuable people want to think about. So we invite that, but like I said, we don't do anything unless there's an overwhelming consensus.
Anything else? All right, thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let me know if you have any other questions.
So what was the budget for us last week, Stephanie?
It was 6,000 last year. Town manager was like 7 on the last one.
But last year they had a carryover 1821, so they were done close to that.
Any discussion?
Oh, Christine, sorry. Did he also ask in the email that or mention that he thought there was gonna be an overage for this fiscal year?
He initially did say that, but it doesn't look like there's any.
Okay.
So the exception. Any,
Move it there.
any discussion? Seconds. As we heard, the town manager has weighed in, but, it's not a whole lot of money, and we feel it's justified, members, so. And I appreciate that he did follow instructions and it's not hard. Some people do best. Everybody has to pass. All right, so if there's no further discussion, all in favor of $8,000 for the service station, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, unanimous. All right, let's get an update from the cybersecurity leader. Who wants to take the lead?
Well, okay, so, I forget when it was, sometime last fall. Well, in June, we learned that the town had, potentially lost $400-some thousand due to a cyber crime. We felt that it was important for the finance committee to look into it. Of course, money has been spent, but probably more important is proactively, what can we do to prevent it in the future? So as a finance committee, we want to see what's being done, and of course, how much does that cost, both initially or capital expenses or ongoing expenses in whatever department is necessary. So we, Andy Comfort, Daryl, and the town manager and the assistant town manager and IT, head of IT, and the comptroller a number of times to get the details of, what exactly happened. And we're all pretty technically inclined, so we can understand things. And it was fun hearing the manager saying, like, I just wondered what the D-mark was. In the report, we structured them as a timeline, so we can sort of see what happened when, which helps, determine what the sequence of events was. And I don't know if I need to repeat any, that, but the bottom line, it looks like that there will be, there are proposed additions to the IT department, mainly for a dedicated cybersecurity specialist to work in IT and proactively, do internal audits to make sure that things are, up to state of the art as much as we can afford, and look, stay up to date with the literature and what's going on in the world and try to get ahead of things like that. We also know that stuff happens, So we want, to know what happens, for example, if there's identity theft, like, let's say theoretically, somebody breaks into Power School and, gets student identification, or somebody breaks in.
Theoretically?
Theoretically, yeah, or somebody breaks into the tax system, gets people's bank account numbers and whatever. What's the town do about that? What's the notification plan? And, you know, what can we do to citizens who might have had their, you know, bank account, social security numbers and stuff stolen? And we've summarized in the report the things that we know about. I'm not exactly sure that all of them are being done, what exactly the timeline is. We're gonna, you know, keep working with that. Just after this report was written, I got, some more information from the director of IT with a lot of specifics, and she specifically said that, you know, we don't want everyone to know exactly what firewall we're using. Here's what we're using, but we don't want that in the report, which is, you know, fairly reasonable. And we have draft board coming up shortly with that information. Christine mentioned maybe one of the buzzwords that not everyone in town meeting would know, so we're working on a glossary, you know. Get feedback. So anyway, what we want to do tonight is I always think of the finance committee often as a dress rehearsal for town meeting. So we try to anticipate what questions are that the town meeting members might ask about this, because they're confused, or because they want to know more details, or whatever. So that's what I'd like to get from the finance committee tonight. And is there anything we don't understand, or any details that we just forgot to put in, or are there any missing links, or whatever? Again, our job is not to make the town cyber secure. Our job is to understand what happened, what's being done about it, and then it all goes back to the budgets.
Wait, did you send out the report?
Huh?
I missed it.
Yeah, Thursday.
Well, this is not hyperlink.
If I'm sure, look at the SharePoint documents under the cyber security tab. So,
So for those people who have read the report and,
I have one other thing. So in addition to the IT side, I'm trying to keep people out, there's also the whole business process side. Because you can't really hang your hat completely on, no one will ever breach a system that way. So there's been also on the town manager, a review of the business processes so that there are more tripwires and things, so that it is, especially in cases of money being, you know, redone.
we were concerned with, you know, the first thing we got back from IT and town manager were, they call it the fighting the last battle. Like all the, there's a bunch of things that were stopped this last one, but the last one, there's a lot of other cyber crime going on out there, particularly ransomware and identity. So what are you doing about that? And we're continuing to press them, you know, what other things are you anticipating, are you defending against that might happen? And we learned a few things like, Lowell had a big ransomware attack, and my understanding is they paid the ransom. Bedford did, and Bedford said, screw you, we're gonna leave that up. Yeah. You know, what are we doing, what do we have to back up, and go through those things.
so David, Jennifer, we're talking.
I just want to point out something, a little history here. We have had 2 incidents that I'm aware of that people have gotten into the old high school and messed around in the IT department. One individual decided to change his son's marks. Well, like a few of the investigation. And we had 2 others that got into the building on a long weekend, and stayed in the building, and actually brought their lunch and get into the tech, but they didn't exactly know what they were doing, but what they did do is they knocked out the entire master fire alarm system down. And it was controlled in the tech, and only that they had it, that was a summer incident. They had some extra money, they hired a night watching, he was a former Quincy police officer, and he found them in the building, 2 of them. And they were kids, they were senior They had just graduated from Arlington, and, he brought it right to call the policeman. So that there's capabilities, of getting into any system. And so anything can happen at any time, but that's true that I'm aware of. The changing of marks as a town employee.
Yeah, so it's actually it's great that we have this new school and new IT department and everything, love our separated. And I'm afraid I also didn't see the report, so it might be, dedicated cybersecurity experts sound fabulous, also sound very expensive, to get somebody good, right? My question is, compared to other towns without our size, do each of those towns have this kind of position? A full-time employee in this position?
So just to note that that employee is not a high-level cybercrime specialist. It's an analyst position to monitor the systems.
Okay.
And then also to sort of, stay on top of what new features, new things we gotta add to those systems as time goes by. So it's not a super expensive position.
Got it, okay.
And I don't know, Alan, what's in the budget?
84,000. Yeah, I mean, we were sort of asking Bill. But-
Yeah,
We've got something,
right.
that's something we'll cover.
Yeah.
A little
But it's a full-time position.
Although I will point out in the government context,
Yes.
that's par for the course, whether that's too low to get the person you really need. Is sort of another question.
And then the second question is, does everyone else have such a person? And we're sort of lagging behind, could be in the vanguard, could be somewhere in the middle.
I think 5 years ago, we just said no.
Yeah.
And I think people are hungry. I don't know, but maybe we should look at other towns' budgets to see who has what.
Yeah, I'm just curious if we again do, I think that's a question that could come up again.
Yes, thank you.
Chuck and then Rebecca and then Cheryl.
So thanks for doing that report, Alan and Topher.
I'm sort of humbled by having a cybersecurity expert.
Yeah, so, I read the report and I read the Tom's documents and, I think you went back and asked over specific threat vectors and how she could address them and I thought the responses were okay. But I think if we could, in the report, somehow encourage her to take a broader look at the whole landscape of cyber controls. And that can include technology and include process roles, the whole gamut, because from what I observed, I'm not sure, I didn't see something like that. And I think what would be helpful is once she does that, we could determine, okay, of the, 100 things you can do, it's more than 100 actually, but 100 things you can do, we can afford to do 50 with this budget, 60, whatever, and she can make an assessment as to, or somebody can make an assessment as to what's the right level of investment to reduce the risk. So that's what I would, the finance committee is not in the position to say, hey, do this, do that, or the other thing, because we're not cyber, but I think from a budgetary perspective, I think it deserves a more comprehensive look. And the other thing I'll say on the systems analyst, so I had those people, and that's good to have someone that can look at logs and kind of look for anomalies in the logs. There are services that provide that. So you don't necessarily have to hire somebody, and that person's not gonna be 7 by 24, right? So if you're a threat actor, it's 7 o'clock, So I'm wondering if, there's plenty of services out there, I'm wondering if a broader view, someone that could take a broader view of the town controls, including the schools, and say, hey, the third party, the threat vectors, this does as it does as a threat vector, right? So it's take a broader view and say, over the landscape of town assets, these are the set of controls that we want to have in place to prevent and respond. The two big halves of what you need to do. So that's my opinion.
Rebecca.
Thank you. So thanks very much for the report, it was super, informative, and in particular, I found the glossary very helpful. So thank you for including that.
Let us know what's missing.
But I will say, I got pretty far through the report before I realized it was going to be a glossary, so something towards the beginning that's like, there's a glossary at the end, so you don't, because I was Googling around some of these terms then. But thank you, that glossary is great. One question that I had in reading it, I think, there were some questions in town meeting about how widespread this sort of email hacking part was. And so at first, as I read, it sounds like 2 email accounts were compromised, but then, on the paragraph about September 12th on the first page, it says that inbox rules designed to obscure and hide threat actor activity were found in 12 accounts. So does that mean, 12 people had their email accounts visible to the actor?
I think what it means is that of those 2 accounts, at least one of them had administrative access and could go in and put it in line.
Okay. Okay. And so then maybe that explains the other question I had was about the actor was also able to move quarantine emails back into the employees' inboxes. And is that for the same reason?
One of the admitted, I can say that was, I think that was the setting that it used to be, that the employee could do that. But they would look at the mail and say, well, it's okay, they can do it. That has been changed.
Yes.
So they have to go through the IT process.
Okay. So it was the case that the threat actor acting as the employee could take the quarantine from that employee's own quarantine folder into their account. And they can no longer, I saw that they can no longer do that.
Now, if they could get into an administrative account, they could probably do anything. The rest would have to do it at this point, but.
Thank you. And then I thought, that there were, it looks like 40 people were potentially targeted.
One of the other problems was that they had a limited logs, and this thing wasn't discovered for months after it happened, so a lot of the history had gone away, which is unfortunate.
So it's hard to know exactly how it got out. Okay.
I believe they know the account. I believe they do it, but there are sort of personal issues involved that we're not digging into.
Thank you.
All right, Charlie, Annie, Dee, and
Thank you. So, I'm not sure if I just heard the answer to my question or not. But did the bad actor change the approvals and reroute the check himself or herself? Or did somebody in the organization approve the change without going through appropriate management review?
The latter, on that.
So that's not stated here. And I mean, this is a great report, but it doesn't address the fact that there was a personnel failure and a management failure in the system. And that's a question that's gonna come up at town meeting. People wanna know, how did we lose $400,000?
And there will probably be a lot of questions we'll defer to the town meeting, but, I guess the question is it our role to dig that deeply, or is it our role to?
I think it was.
I understand the problem.
My personal view is that this report, for all of its in-depth analysis and tracking and explanations, does not address the fact that there is human and management failure here. And that's the core issue.
And that probably will be, continue to be.
How can the finance committee put out a report that's supposed to be definitive about what happened and not say?
I take the point, it should be clear, how it happened.
Well, and also, there is a section of the report about less polluting the road, business process changes that made in terms of, so I think there's 2 things here. It's like, was there not, yes, did somebody reroute money? And I don't know if they ignored, I don't think they ignored, I don't think the right controls were in place. Controls have been put in place. So one of it is, so hasn't been, is being addressed. Something the town manager, the town manager, all the business processes. That looks. But if that's not clear in the report.
I think there's some influences. But again,
Make it clear.
yeah, I think that's a question about how clear we want to be. And
Well, I mean, in our conversations with the town manager, he was very clear that a person
Yeah.
did X, Y, Z. We just want to be sure everybody understands that I think this is one of the first ones. That's a personnel matter and not our business. But I thought in our timeline, we covered that there was a failure of process. And there has been a redesign of process. So it was a procedure gap. The person the sequence of events that involved personnel wasn't somebody failing to do the job. There was no protocol they had to follow. That there was no appropriate protocol. That's my understanding.
yeah, there were a number of weak points here. You know, one was how did they get into the email system and do that? And then another one was who approved the transfer to a bogus account?
That's the one that.
And another one is why didn't Skanska?
We spend $75,000 or $100,000 a year on auditors to come up with the recommendations for controls.
Right.
So my assumption is that there's a control process that says you don't change your bank account or a check explanation something without going to your boss or doing something.
Right, yes, and another factor that's a big one is, why didn't Skanska check this? They haven't been paid for 3 months. 4 months, they haven't been paid for 4 months. You notice one of the process changes is, if any invoice comes in with past due amounts, that's a red flag. If we pay our bills on time. It's shocking that it was the project manager, is the company that suffered from it.
But that's, I don't think that's not it's not relevant. I mean, what's relevant here is that we did something wrong. It was a person that did it, and it was a manager that didn't catch it. And that's what, it doesn't come out of this report.
I'd just like to add, sorry.
Are you finished, Rob?
I am, I think I made my point.
Andy, the next on the list?
Yeah, so I wanna say a couple things, and so relative to your point, you know, I think that what happens in IT departments like our IT department, is that they're probably with short resources to sort of stay on top of the world. The world's moving really fast. I take your point. I think what everybody has to understand is that this means that we will have to increase the IT budget in order to protect ourselves from these things in the future. So that there were two things that happened here, and Charlie, you're right. One of those was human failure in the sense that we didn't have a strict business process or to solve the problem. The change that they have made is that now if a person comes, if a vendor says, I want to change from receiving a check to ACH, the answer is fine. Then somebody we know has to show up with their ID. And, you know, if the person requesting is, you know, so should be on our contact list, they have to come in with somebody we know. It can't just be a random person who shows up with their license and says, I work for Skanska. It has to be our contact at Skanska that comes in with them or comes in to change. So we have to see the person and see their ID, and then our person doesn't make any change like that without that. So there's a fix in the analog worlds in place. Jim has looked at all the business processes to look for any other similar gaps where something like this could go unnoticed for a while. Hence the idea that the protocol now is, if we have a vendor bill and it's not passed to the loan on it, immediately you have to do some research to figure out why that is. Because it shouldn't be because we didn't pay the bill. Maybe it is, but we should be sure that we didn't pay that bill and it went somewhere it shouldn't have gone. So I think there's a bunch of things going on here, but what's important from our perspective, what I think we have to convey to town meeting is IT budget is going to go up. It must go up in order to protect against these types of threats. And then, Chuck, if there is something that Patricia is not doing or Patricia she's not looking at, I'm quite certain she would love
Yeah.
the assistance of expertise. I do know that they have hired consultants to like do penetration testing. They don't know when they have something to do with it.
You know, I think that's necessary, yeah. I mean, you know, I have 100 questions about what happened. And when you hear, you know, we didn't have the log backups to analyze, right? That's a huge red flag, right? You know, that, so, and there's, you know, a bunch of other like that. So I think, there needs to be, you know, I think we're very fortunate to have this happen and only lose 500K.
Yes.
I think, you know, we dodged the bullet and it should, you know, open our eyes.
Yeah.
And we need to take the appropriate action as much as we can afford, because we could spend the town budget on controls, but we can't. So we just need to be very clear and explicit, you know, how much risk appetite do we want to take against what budget and clearly articulate that, which I don't think, I haven't seen, I haven't seen that. And I would also suggest that, you know, even on the process side, even on the finance side, and certainly in IT, finance, and cyber, there's plenty of industry frameworks that guide those functions to say, here's a list of controls, NIST, ISO, there's a million of them. And you gotta, you know, typically companies pick one and say, this is our framework, and we match up against that framework, figure out, this is what we do, this is what we can't do, this is how mature we are in particular capability. I just think, I think something like that needs to happen, and I'm certainly happy to talk to, and this is what I used to do, so I'm certainly happy to talk to Patricia and, you know, offer some suggestions.
So my suggestion would be for another meeting with the town manager that we lost Chuck. And if we want to keep the footprint small, like having it not with that meeting. Because process is what I know. And I understand technology, but not cyber protection, so.
Right, follow up on Dean.
So I had a chance to read lots here, it was great. The one gap that I'm gonna tell you the one thing that's always been bothersome to me before this is, and I think it actually emphasized here, is I've always been concerned we have a governance gap on this stuff. So what I have assumed, I may be wrong, I assume this has shown up in the auditor's management letter comments before, right? Now, why is it a big deal? Because when I go to work during the day, and I have a problem with controls, and my auditors catch it, they have an audit committee they get to go to that beats me. They tell the audit committee beats me into a pulp for the littlest thing. Doesn't make me feel really good about myself, right? Here, what we've learned is a flaw in Arlington government is when the auditors have a problem, they don't really have a person to go to that has a stick, right? We have a vague, loosely defined group of people who are not actually within the bylaws of the Town Manager Act with any authority. We don't have an audit committee, right? And they just sort of receive the report. And no one ever grabs that management letter and can say, okay, we need to take some action on this. So issues can linger for years on end and no one cares. I'm gonna guess this is in there somewhere in a past report, and we just didn't know. No one had this thing. So I think that remains the big problem, right? There is no overarching person at a governance level, like an audit committee, who is charged with receiving the audit, receiving the audit report, and making sure these holes, when they show up, are dealt with. Because frankly, I think anybody who has a professional finance job and goes to one of these cybersecurity conferences has been told for at least 15, 20 years that when you get an email asking to change a bank account, you go into your directory of people you know and information you have and phone numbers you already have on file, and you call the person yourself from that source. Or you just call the main number, copy it, drill your way in. You don't just say, cool, thanks, and fix it. And that's a scary thing, right? Like there's nobody, so even though we can fix it, we can say we fix it, there's no one who's in charge of, there's no overarching governance, and it's like, hey, let's watch this for the next period of time. I think that's the whole.
So, I've been on the audit review committee for a long time, and probably 10 years ago, Powers and Sullivan, so that's 20 people, did come out, and said they were particularly concerned with like the lack of backups. Things like that, and they made suggestions, and that's when we put the backup in the police station, whatever. There was no mention of cybersecurity. For about the last 5 years, the management letter has been virtually empty. Power and Solid was bought by Market was bought by CBiz, and the last thing I mentioned in the timeline is, last September, I think, CBiz sent a team in to check out our response to it. I was a little disappointed they were here for all of the day, but they did, they talked to people, and they talked to the manager, so, the auditor, the supplement, we've actually been pretty good at responding to management. I won't comment on the adequacy of the management letter, but the management letters we got from Power and Solid, the things did get, were responded to, before we empty it out.
But it's not,
But they would catch,
but it's not covered by 40 other things, right? So like, if you go work, if you show up at a public company, they have very specific things that people need to know, audit committees need to be able to know, right?
I don't think either us or the auditors were looking deeply enough. And I can say that this particular attack, I'm confident will never happen again. I'm more worried about the rest of them.
Yeah. So, people who have not yet spoken, so anyone else? No, go ahead, Sue.
So, two things, just so I don't forget that I have 2 things. Yeah, on this most recent topic, this comes up every year in our budget for the select board, that's where the money comes out of for the audit. So, in my mind, to the extent the select board is the one paying for it out of their budget, they have ultimate responsibility for reviewing it. So, and they hire the town manager, the aesthetic. I mean, I don't think it's out, politics aside, whatever, there is a process, somebody, buck stops somewhere. Legally, I don't know if there's been a question to the legal department if we think the auditors haven't fulfilled their obligation of doing their job adequately, is something we, question. I haven't read the full report because I missed the link, but I tend to agree that if listening to Charlie's argument, I am more on the not understanding the technical side. I am very interested in the personnel and the human side of the story without understanding that it's all HR, private, confidential. Something to point out, because I looked quickly and I saw numbers, it came up in our department budgets, in the town manager's office for 2024, and the expenditures, other unclassified expenses, which were $11,000 over budget. Some of that went towards the cyber issue and third-party auditor policy work. And I want to make sure we capture in the numbers. I don't know if that's specifically, but there may be other, as everybody's looking at their department budgets, to actually go back and look at the 2024 actuals and ask if any numbers that are unusually high could be related to the cyber issue.
I mean, I think what we know is that the bulk of the money came out of the contingency budget in the building project, but the consulting and the legal and the attorneys, whatever, came from the town manager's budget. He hasn't determined yet, he may be coming to us for a reserve transfer. He hasn't determined that, depending on what the rest of the year. So, yeah, if you look, there's a short table with numbers.
Right, I looked,
Where
I
the
didn't see,
money came.
okay, because I didn't see our numbers in there, but.
But it was only the building project with town manager's budget.
Okay.
So, as far as no additional charges to IT or control or anything.
Anything else? Yeah, that's it, thank you. John?
Yeah, I just want clarification. When I read the report, I think there's a tendency to feel like, what maybe, fell for this one or something like that. But my impression is that the bad actors did a very kind of complex human reconfiguration in terms of email tools and things like that. So that it wasn't just, oh yeah, transferred over. It was kind of a web of machines. Is that a correct understanding, do you think?
And it was.
I mean, all the movies, the emails and out
Well, they,
boxes and redirecting
it
things.
started as almost like with a legitimate email. Stanford didn't want to do something. And they managed to insert themselves in the middle of that with some email tricks to,
Right.
Intercept and, changed.
And then they might have emailed their manager for approval, and the manager might reply back, sure.
I think honestly, they could have been lurking and monitoring emails
Right.
for years,
Right.
looking for the right opportunity, which is not really.
Right. So I mean, it seems like, maybe that's not clear enough in the report, maybe I'm over thinking the whole thing, but it sounds like it was not just pure confidence that somebody fell for this. And this is probably not really our purview, but it's all kind of human failings that these things are so successful. If there are like regular fishing probes and things like that, that people are evaluating and figuring out how many people click them, that kind of thing.
What we should be looking for in the budgets is the training and the testing, because it's 90% human engineering. You can buy so many firewalls and, network software, or whatever, but at the end of the day, these guys are clever, and now we're using, deep fake. There was the recent one, a company got scammed out of $25 million because everybody on Zoom was a deep fake video. They're getting really clever, and AI and cyber cash and all this together, and they're gonna be moving really fast. How do we defend against that? I think is.
And there's no opportunity for insurance against this kind of thing.
Big, to collect $100,000. That was the limit of insurance. And whether that should be raised.
And this again, maybe off topic, but I don't understand the whole business with the mole. Someone has to actually go to the bank and open a bank account and put their social security number on and stuff like that. Why?
That's an open question. And it's unclear if the mule was aware of what was going on. It could have been, again, social engineering.
Do they know whose account it was that the money went into? There's not a person associated with that?
That's a good question. If this wasn't like a street corner cash checking, or, checking out an organization, this was a big thing. On both ends.
To listen to this, I just want to sort of bring up Chuck's suggestion, that you're potentially involved in this, to look at outside firms, because given how fascinating this is, how is the $84,000 best spent, right? So if you hire somebody who may be very good, but isn't, 100% of everything is new, it just might be a larger firm, just to sort of ask those questions. Will that work better for us?
Yeah, and just to go off of that too, as I was thinking, we've had a conversation about a lot of different things, right? From, having an outside firm do it, whether the 84,000 is really adequate for this position. And I'm trying to get a sense of, I think just 84,000 this year, but is there any thought to what the future's going to look like for the future budgets? Are they going, obviously this is an evolving situation and they're getting advice, and it looks like we may, offer some advice, but I guess, again, just thinking about it from a budgetary standpoint, what future investments, have been thought about and what can we expect in the future?
And Chuck said, we can spend the town's entire budget on this, where we go to line, what are the priorities?
Exactly, and I'm thinking with the hat too, Wednesday we're meeting with the town manager, and as we all know, budgets are tough, and trying to come up with additional resources is going to be even more difficult given the constraints that we have with our revenues. So I'm trying to think of the now, and I'm thinking of the future.
Yeah. If I go back to one of Josh's questions about the other banks and tracking them down, we really got the impression, honestly, that this was peanuts. As Grant said, we got a light on this one. The banks didn't just seem, my impression is the banks just didn't care. Wasn't a big deal.
It wasn't a big deal. They didn't care, as I said.
Yeah. That's the impression.
I really
small.
You should see how bad we really are.
Okay, so I have been wondering about this whole insurance thing, because it seems 100,000 is pretty limited.
We were covered for $100,000 per incident. We did the entire scam for $100,000. Even though it was multiple transfers of money, they would not, the contractors were very tight, so that you define this as one incident, not an incident or
A series of incidents.
yeah. And that's why we were at $100,000.
Is our coverage adequate?
I think that is really the question for the committee.
Yeah, so it's a perfect, what would it cost to get?
He has to think about that relative to cost and whether it's part of the risk assessment job.
Yeah.
How much insurance versus how much technology versus how much training and testing and process review.
Anyway, one more thing, and I'm hearing a good thing here. I think another reason why we're talking about this tonight is now everybody can go in their department interviews, to talk about insurance and say, what would it cost to get more insurance? And go to human resources, we're going to training. So I think all of us can, if we have a good idea of what's potential or whatever, now as we go out and interview department heads, keep these questions in mind.
I was going to suggest that when we are meeting with our department heads, have this incident in mind and figure out what training, what is each department doing? And if the answer is no, we want to hear that. And if they say, well, now we're going to do this training, but we're not going to do this training this year because we have to do IP training. We come back to us when we present budgets with that type of information. And I think we can fold that into a report.
So,
Charlie.
Thank you. So, thinking about Dean's comments, being a CFO and getting beat up by the audit.
It's a good time.
We have CFO now. We reorganized the town government probably 8 years ago, something like that. And Alex McGee, he is the deputy town manager, and he is responsible for IT, for the comptroller's department, and, other financial organizations. He's the CFO. And he's the guy that's supposed to be worried about whether the audit report has the right review, right recommendations, whether Power and Sullivan has got the right controls. I mean, it's his job. While indeed the funding for that comes out of the select board, he's a CFO.
Right. I want to thank the working group.
I just want to make one couple comments. One, is on the audit question, it depends what type of audit. So if this firm is doing a broad-based audit, maybe we need to budget for a cyber audit. And this is a more specialized one. So that's one point I think I would say.
By the way, I'll put the preliminary audit report and meeting letter up on your form. So, see what those.
So you have what things you're gonna do, right? More people to talk to.
There's open questions.
And I want to thank the group and for Annie, Daryl. I can't tell you how much work they have done over many months. It was when we stopped work in June. I think it was at our breakup dinner that I grabbed people and said, we're gonna do this for have a fun summer. And they have really worked pretty hard since. So I have big thanks to them. And thanks to the community on this for and I can't think of better group of 4 people to task. Yes.
If you think of a question, driving home, just email it. Not what you're running.
All right. Does anyone have any budgets? Anyone?
Yes.
All right, Dave, budgets.
Sophie and I have been busy. Why don't we start off with a little more finance?
Why one?
22 like wood. And you'll notice on the salaries is a vacancy. Madam Chairperson, we just remember that. And that's in the process of being, interviews are going on, speak, and, that should be filled pretty soon. So if you want to mention the spot that,
Right, so there's a couple, quirks, if those of you who've been on the committee for a couple of years will remember back in fiscal year 24, we changed, stipend that was for the executive secretary role, I think it would take minutes or something, right? And it was shared by a committee member and then it got switched over to Tara. And so we had changed some numbers around and unfortunately not everything made it through the entire spreadsheet and the details. So the detail is actually sort of wrong, but the town manager's office says the total is correct, and we can vote the total. And next year, we now know where the details are wrong in the numbers. So specifically, the finance committee members should have been 2,500, because we took out the 550 from there, but it got left in the details. And so they accidentally, in the spreadsheet Excel, had overridden some things and taken that number out of the salary. I think on Tara, but she gets it from the finance committee stipend area, but it'll get cleaned up for next year. But it skews maybe some of the percentage change because it's showing a negative number in the salaries, which it wouldn't necessarily cleaned up, but they're assured that the totals are correct.
The totals meaning 1,840.
Yes. And just to point out, since this is our first budget for the season, for everybody looking, the 2025 budget numbers are going to be different than your budget books because the COLA was decided after we did our budgets. So when you go back and compare to your budget books, realize that all your numbers will be slightly higher on this year's budget for 2025 than it was actually in the budget book.
So those are going to be.
It was it was all COLA because it affected even the non-entities, yeah. So all across the board. I also this year it's not so much an effect here on this budget, but in future budgets. I found it helpful to look on the 2024 actuals. I actually wrote in what the 2024 budget numbers were. So I could see whether the actuals came in above budget. Sometimes the 2024 budget is already changed in the 2020, 25 numbers that we have there. Does that make sense? Yes. So I found that helpful this year. In case anybody else to do that, if there are answers.
Any, so your recommendation?
so it's the finance committee's, the total budget is 11,840. And I recommend that we accept that.
Second.
Any questions? All right, all in favor of recommendation, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any other?
I'm sorry, I have a question. The FinCom member salaries went to 25. What are the salary number, the 11,840, the salary number is correct, 8345?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, because I'm not sure I understand all they said the math doesn't add up on the details, but the total's right. Because
Where was the 2,500?
Oh, because, okay, so the finance committee number on the detail should have been 2,500. And then we had added back in 2024 to the expenses, we had added 550 to the expenses so that we could get to a total that didn't change and we could vote the budget.
Okay.
And so there's actually an extra 550 that's down in the expenses that shouldn't be there because, does that make sense?
So I should subtract 550 from salaries and add 550 to expenses? Or should I get back to you on? Okay, I was just wondering, it sounded like something changing when we just voted on the same book, that's.
Right, we voted the total. Right, and we voted the total of the book, which is what Alex said.
Right, E345 is based on a 30/50. But that should be 2,500. There's 550.
Right, but they took out the 550, it's in the salaries. Or chart that they manually, if you look at the details, it doesn't add
Yeah.
up on the detail page, the totals are wrong. The new pay, right, the new pay, the base, and then the column total at the end isn't right, because they manually took out the 550.
It has up, it's 831.
Yeah, but if you look at the base things.
Right.
New pay's 809.
Yeah.
Which is usually what.
I mean, I think we can ask him to reprint one, I think he was hoping to just reprint it next year.
Okay, I just need to get the number right. But it sounds like we're adding 550, it sounds like we're subtracting 550 from salaries and adding 550 from expenses. Is what I'm hearing, maybe more. I'm gonna have to get back to you, it sounds like the bottom line is correct,
The bottom line.
which is all we voted, but I need to get.
Okay,
I'll get back.
right. It's,
Okay.
All right, any other budgets? David?
We can do the selectmen's budget, it's on page 26 and 27, I look. Some of the questions that Sophie and I received, one question was, what's the difference between the board administrator's position and the office manager's? And it was really, they're two different jobs. Board administrator answers directly to the board of selectmen, through the chair of the board of selectmen. And she's responsible 24/7. And as a matter of fact, you see an item, that telephone expense, that's $500 in the budget. That's for her cell phone, that's used to the board of selectmen members want to get hold of her. And she has a lot of conversations on Sunday nights, especially when the meeting is on a Monday. So, she's responsible for that. She works directly with the town manager, she works directly with the clerk, clerk works directly with the board of selectmen, director of selectmen. And then she's also responsible for the operation of the office. She's over the two employees in the office. So, and she's also takes the minutes, schedules, selected meetings, hearings, stuff of that nature, versus the office manager is responsible for the everyday operations of the select board, which includes licensing, permits, public ways, town day, just to name a few, and any concerns that citizens of the town have that come to the board of selectmen's office and for inquiries. And then you have the third position, which is, that's a new, well, there's a new person doing that. The Lauren Costa transferred to the manager's office as, with a new title called budget coordinator. So, and the person that's doing the administrative assistant position now transferred from the police station over to the board of selectmen.
That's why she came, so anybody who's tracking steps, that position was at step 3, 4 last year, but because of an internal transfer, she kept her step 8, which is what the significant jump is there.
On the expenses.
You want to- I think as we're going through the salaries, I want to talk about the vacant position.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah, you try some forgetting about this. So, for those that have been here for a while, the history behind this vacant position is, it's been vacant since July 2021. It was at the FTE1, and then it decreased to a 0.54 in fiscal year 24 budget. So now this is like the third budget, right, at 0.54, and it's still vacant. The step was reduced, it's now a step 4 for that vacant position, it was a step 5 previously. Town manager is trying to reset vacant positions at 4 with exceptions depending on specific positions, so that might come across in your budgets as well. It used to be policy that vacant positions were trying to be at 3, these won't play out to 4. The issue we had with this position last year, right, is that it's been a long time that we've been carrying it. It's clear to me, there's no intent to fill this position. The select board's office will say, maybe some of this pilot parking programs might come in and they could use this person, but upon speaking with others, it seems clear to us that that's probably not gonna be sufficient work to cover that. They're jammed, they feel very busy in that office, but nobody is actively looking to fill that vacancy. So the question is, after so many years of it being empty, at what point do we really insist that it be removed from this? It seems to me that town managers are also on the same wavelength as we are. They shouldn't be hearing this. I don't want to speak for him, but I think it's really time for us to do something here.
And it's just select board, it's the select board that wants to.
Yes, they want the flexibility. And the money goes to free cash if they don't use it. But I feel like to me, it skews the numbers in salary, right? When we look at percentage increase, because they can, like here, reduce it to a step 4 when it was a step 5. And so it skews what we're viewing in the numbers. So it goes against the policy of use it or lose it that, we don't endorse, but I think it's a discussion we have to continue from last year.
So, questions, answer. John, and.
Yeah, so as far as what we can do, I would say we can move forward against the budget. I mean, 58,000, it looks like it's up to 67,000.
No, it's the 26,
Oh, okay.
26,212 on salary that they carry.
Okay, so the max, so a full-time position would be 57,940 max, but then you cut that in half down to 2612. 26,212.
Right. It was originally carried at the full when it was 1.0, and then they did bring it down, but it's still just money that's sitting there that could be used by another department.
Still, I think that's the one power we do have.
So we can keep presenting the rest of it. That is.
All right, go ahead and finish your budget and we'll have some for that.
Just a point of information, the last person to hold that position, now the board administrator. That's how long. Yeah.
Can you remind us how many years it's been vacant?
Since July 2021. Yeah, we've been watching it, we've been tracking it.
For 4 years.
One of the issues, one of the arguments was the first few years it was vacant was that each year there's a new chair of the select board. And it's up to the chair to decide whether to post and hire. And it just never really got done. But I think now with enough, look back, we can see that it's not.
Anything else about your budget?
So that was salaries. On expenses, you'll also notice in all your budgets, all the categories have changed. The explanation for this is that we are now under the Universal Massachusetts Accounting Standards. And these line items are matched to the universal standard. So you're going to go through and do the mental, it will line up with last year's exactly. What we've noted, again, year to year, is the accounting and auditing budget is about 10,000 over. The budget number is about 10,000 more than the actual number, which we have been questioning for a while. The town manager has clarified that is because he specifically wants extra to go back for follow-up questions. So yes, it's purposely 10,000 over. In case there are follow-up questions after the audit to cover that. And that will most likely in fiscal year 2027 go up to 120,000 or more, based on discussions of similar towns that we have a contract, so we are at this level, but when we go off contract in fiscal year 2027, that 78,000 is gonna go up to 120 or more, because that's what the marketplace is. Wow.
And then Powers and Sullivan, they bought up and another company, and another company bought them. So there's no doubt that this figure is gonna go up.
I think the telephone expenses we already covered, office supplies and printing, there was not a line number in printing before, and she has split last year's office supplies of 7,050, she split it between office supplies and printing, so she can track how much is printing and how much is actually office supplies. That's why in the percentage change, you see that number. And the dues and memberships, we had expected that number to go up over 13,000 this year, because we had thought, based on previous conversations, that there was going to be a 2.5% increase on these dues and memberships based on notices that she receives. That actually for this 2026 fiscal year, it's gonna come in at just under 13, but the following fiscal year, that number will also be increasing by probably the 2.5%. So more, if you look at the 2024 actuals, the unclassified expenses, that was large. That was the Japanese dinner from the year that we hosted our sister city of Japan came here, been planned before. So that was explaining that unclassified expense. I think that takes us through everything on here.
Right, Annie and Chuck. Peggy? So have we had a conversation with the chair of the select board about whether or not it's gonna post this position?
Not this year, but we were told by the board administrator that they are not. She has discussed it in the responses, no, they are not living up. They are not listed.
Okay, so we should do a little math and move that.
And I can hear you. We should do a little math and remove that position, but that the budget, my opinion. So you gotta figure that out.
My question is general, on dues and memberships, you can see that line item a lot in the budgets. Does the town have a policy as to what memberships and dues it will cover and what it won't, or is it up to each department to say you wanna be in the Friends of Auditors or something, okay?
So at least for the departments that we do, it's up to the department heads. Here for select board, it's membership to the select board association, those, administrators for towns, and the banning, it's based on their licensing, right? And so if they want to keep their licensing current, then they have to up the trade.
It's compulsory, so compulsory stuff we have to pay for, otherwise it's up to the discretion of the department.
Right, and, yeah,
Except, it's okay,
go ahead.
so on dues and memberships, it's up to the discretion of the department, okay? But the department heads have to be members of certain organizations to do their work. And so we only give them enough money to be members of those.
Okay.
So like, the treasurer has to be part of the Treasurer Collectors Association, the comptroller has to be part of the Comptroller Association. They have enough money to be members of that. And if you want to go with the deputy director to a GFOA meeting, fine, that's where it ends.
Well, for the planning, because a lot of the engineers, they don't have it right.
Yeah.
They have certain not just the head, but others below have qualifications, and what had been explained to us is she could tell them, you're on your own, you're keeping up, right? But in the marketplace, that's not. Right, so she takes it on.
Okay. So I have a question in comparing this FY 26.
Excuse me, can you talk just a little louder?
Oh, sure.
Little way down.
I'm just comparing the FY 25 to the FY 26. And FY 25, we had 78,000 for audit reports. And I don't see that on the 26.
Yes, it's the accounting and auditing line now.
Oh,
Just like we.
Yeah, all the number, everything has changed because we're now in the
Oh, there it
automation
is.
system. So before you talk to your department heads, you're going to have this sort of roadmap.
Piece of kind.
Because they don't line up even in the order they're in, so it's not as simple. And to some extent, where people have questions about the titles of why it's named something versus, it's because it's the universal Massachusetts standard. That will follow.
Give an example. Cleaning clothing, it used to be cleaning clothing in white gloves, on gloves. I say white because the police outfits say white. But then now it's just cleaning, but it. These are by contract, whether it be a union contract or stuff.
And
They call it cleaning rather than they run.
And so this is good for the town to have done this because now across the departments, everybody has the same categories. And so reports can be run much more easily to check the departments and where we are. So, thank you.
This department has no overtime budget. I was wondering if any of the $26,000 was ever used for overtime for the rest of the staff. That would be good.
I think the only overtime was really for the board administrator, I think back when they had a lot of Zoom meetings and things like that. I don't, as long as and it was also when the former board administrator was out on ill and others had to fill in for her, then they needed the overtime, whereas the board administrator doesn't because it's part of their responsibilities. So we don't currently have any.
Okay, well, I guess my question is, any of that 26,000 never used for overtime? We would want to kill it, let's say.
Where are you seeing?
You have to look at actuals.
That's what it actually.
Yeah.
I just wanted to use the 2612 for something else, because it's sort of tangible.
What number do you want to use for? Looking at the.
2612, the base for the big.
Oh, I see.
I'm looking at the position we're talking about.
If I could, the board of selectmen's employees are not union, they're exempt versus town clerk members out of the. Usually what they do is rather than paying overtime, they accrue time to do. And that's been a practice.
Okay, applies to overtime. Yeah.
I do know, last year we had town day, and they had to hire a former person that worked in selectmen's office to coordinate the, applications for town day and the money and stuff. I don't know if that salary that you took, came out of this, or they had to come out of the, town day account, I don't know. They hired, if they got so overrun with other stuff, they just couldn't do it. So that's what they hired.
Straighten that out, but it wouldn't be from this line, because the salary line, it would be a contractor, so.
Yeah, so I don't know how they.
Never the point shall meet.
But that was a one-time deal, I don't know what the process is trying to do issues.
Rebecca,
Did, thank you. This may be a better question for when we do water and sewer, but could someone remind me please why in some of the budgets, the water and sewer offsets are up and some of them down? Could someone remind me how to come up with that?
Here you go, Grant.
We can talk about it later.
I do. Do you have a response to that, Grant?
What was the question, sorry?
In some of the individual budgets, the water and sewer offsets are up, and in some of them, they're down. Could you just remind me, please, why they fluctuate relative to each other?
There's two factors to it. One is that they're actually based on the previous year's budget. So the percentages don't add up to 100, they add up to, but the percentage of the previous year's budget, so if the previous one went up or down, it would be a factor of that. And the other is that there's a chart, but I don't think the chart's been updated. I'd be very surprised if there's one. Because
That's why I thought the chart hadn't changed.
Yeah.
they had indicated that they weren't going to do that. I've not heard anything.
It's a very fluid number.
Actually, that sounds like a volunteer.
Any other questions?
Alan raised his hand up.
Alan,
Madam Chair,
go ahead, Alan.
did I hear correctly that the audit, the $75,000 for the audit has been moved out of the selectmen's budget?
No, it's still in the select boards. It's been
Okay.
moved, under expenses where it used to be a separate item completely on the budget, but it's still on there.
Okay, thank you very much.
Other questions on select boards? So, Sophie and Goodman, do you have a recommendation?
Yeah, I'm recommending that the,
Well, I'm recommending.
I'm gonna recommend that, it's the rules of the committee, but I'm gonna recommend that the total taxation budget is, for $373,266.
Second.
All right, any discussion?
So I have a overacting recommendation.
All right, so try to make that.
And I recommend that we approve a special budget of $347,054, and that we recommend that they remove the vacant position that they have not filled in 4 years, they have no intention.
What's that number again?
$347,054.
You subtracted the salary. Is that
Subtracted the
exactly right?
salary. And I did it through the lines, double check.
Was it 34705?
34705.
I second that.
All right, Charlie.
So, this is actually for Grant. Grant, if you change the salaries, does it change the, offsets?
The salaries,
No. These are the prior year.
right, what they do is they take that ratio and multiply it by what the previous year salary.
Thank you.
All right, so we have two motions. Anybody who wants to talk about?
I just wanna make it. I think, I don't disagree with it, but I think as a courtesy for the chairman, well, it's like we should tell the chairman what we intend to do. We can do this next.
Before we vote?
What is the committee, I mean, as a courtesy to the chairman, should we not take money away until at least we give him a heads up?
Right, it was, I know last year we left it with maybe, our chair was gonna try and reach out to them, I don't know.
And I did, and obviously not,
Didn't go
didn't go anywhere. And now granted, the chair I talked to last year is not the chair this year.
Right. That's part of the problem we've had, is because the chairman's going to get the years.
I will also point out that if we don't do it this year, we're going to have to do it next year because I'm hearing the expenses are going to be astronomical. So they're gonna have to come up with some money somewhere in their budget to cover that, so whether it's this year or next year, I think that freight train.
So I'm not sure about the parliamentarianism of this, but I move that we table this until we get the chair in, with the implication that the chair doesn't come in, we're gonna drop that position.
So we're gonna invite the chair to come.
Invite the chair to come in with the implication it's to defend that position.
And you have to pick a night when they're not meeting, so.
Wednesday.
Who's the chair, Steve?
Diane.
Oh, that'll be fun.
So, and so we have motion, second motion, third motion, any further discussion on this subject? Dean?
So I agree with the comment that we have to, table and at least tell the chair, right? I mean, I think as a finance committee, we have a tradition of of doing such, right? You have to be sensitive around political positions. As a funny little anecdote, when we get to the assessor's budget, you'll notice it's $4,900, right? It used to be $5,000, but state law got changed that you couldn't, we had this issue where like part-time officials were earning full-time pension credits, and so the cutoff was $5,000, right? And so I'm in an assessor's meeting with the then vice chair, Mr. Foskett, where he told the then chair of the board of assessors that, it really would be nice if you could just move it down $100, because if you don't, we have this big fight on the floor of town meeting, it's not good for anyone, right? And then I'll always remember when he stood up on the chair on the floor of town meeting and announced his commitment to fiscal responsibility, and he was reducing everyone on the assessor's pay to $4,900. And I remember thinking, wow, that was awesome. And I went to Charlie afterwards, I'm like, what should we do? And Charlie was like, you should thank him for his wisdom and financial responsibility. And I said, great, okay, done. So, that's what we usually do, right?
I'd like to make another motion that we table this.
Yeah, that's right.
Table it, I think it's just like- Can't hear it down here, so
Are you withdrawing your motion?
I'm gonna withdraw my motion.
And, any?
Similarly,
All right.
let us table and we'll come back.
The only thing on the table right now is a motion to table. Any further discussion on a motion to table? It was consecutive.
Second.
All right, all in favor of tabling this budget until we have given the chair of the select board an opportunity to respond, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Any other budgets?
We can keep going.
We can keep going. Why don't we go to page 80 in the zone. Like what happened last year, it's not a lot of increases, they've made a full-time position rather than a part-time shared position. And it's 0.89, almost 31 hours. So the person works exclusively for the zoning board, rather than the share of the building inspector.
There's not much to this one, for historical information for anybody interested, the 2023 actual on office supplies was over 5,000. That had to do with a public request info issue back then, that had come up, so that was a one-time item.
I'll make a motion that we accept the figure 82,201.
Second. Any, discussion? All right, all in favor of approving the zoning, board, budget of 82,201, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Yeah. Got anything else?
We can keep going. We can keep going.
Because we're busy.
We're busy every day.
We need to do something else.
Town clerk's budget. Just 61.
Sorry, can I interrupt quickly? Do we need to do the, redevelopment board? Is that under you?
We have that, but that's.
Okay.
There's a lot happening in the clerk's office. If you remember, they were able to receive, TV, community. There you go, for $79,000. So, and that money's going to go to, updating files in the system they're gonna, they don't have to go out on bid to hire someone to do that. They can draw from, the state rec has a pool that they can draw from, that'll come up. And that's supposed to start sometime in February.
That's to digitalize the records,
Yeah.
digital records.
So that's something that been talked about for quite a while. Now it's happening.
Each number is that?
But it's
Which
not,
number?
it's not on here, because
I see.
it's not part of the budget.
It's not part of the budget. Just to let people know that that question has come up before, what's happening with that. Also, as we all know, the town clerk's position, the town people voted to remove it from elected position, to an appointed position. In order to do that, the present town clerk as an elected position has to run the term, her 3-year elected term. So that change wouldn't happen until after her term is up.
Right, and she's elected until April 2026. So we'll be looking at that, see what happens after, unless, if she completes her term. There is a survey of, salaries for for town clerks, that's out there. And it would indicate, I don't have it, but from talking to Julie, it does indicate that the salary would be increased once her term is over for whoever, whether it's her or somebody else is employed to be competitive. It will be higher. And that's done, I think, through their Association of Town Clerks, and it's just a salary survey that's updated and it's very specific for size of.
Higher than max, the max is not higher.
I think so.
And since the last time we met on this, there's been a assistant town clerk's position was filled by interim.
There was in the salaries, one of the principal clerks, the last one on the list, the steps are lower because the previous one was at a higher step 6. So there was on that one a decrease, whereas the salary went up and longevity went up on other ones. So it changes the numbers a little bit. On salaries, again, the names, the titles of the categories are changed. So what's now cleaning allowance was a stipend, and that's just a union contract amount that's in the union contract. So there's nothing to do about that.
What's with?
It used to be for gloves or cleaning or something. Right, uniform.
Cleaning, clothing and gloves.
It's just more money in their pocket. Right, and it's just a relic in the union contracts. They never go away. Yeah. They're never doing.
When they change the fire, get your meals.
Yeah.
But that's not considered salary, so it doesn't go to the pension.
Yeah.
Right, it's separate.
Okay, so, right, so no surprises in salary per se, the change in longevity is just automatic, so the increase in numbers there. Expenses. So if you're trying to track, data processing used to be it's the repairs to machines, time stamp machine, they still have typewriters. Yeah.
One time.
Because there's
certain forms which are state mandated and can only be filled out by a typewriter.
Yeah.
So that's one.
And no longer have to talk about state
All right, let them finish the budget.
So that's increased, that amount's increased just because everything increases as far as servicing these types of machines. The advertising and consulting was what used to be called stenographers. Those have gone down to 0 only because she has moved them to the elections on the next page because they are related to elections for town meeting and things like that. So been moved out of this specific spreadsheet, but those numbers haven't disappeared, per se. The office supplies, slightly up, they're just trying to modernize and organize the office after all these years. Same with printing, and the other unclassified expenses are fees and dues and training, she says, which she doesn't have a separate line item for, so we requested it next year, because all the other departments have a line item for fees, dues, and trainings, that she really try and separate that out. We also pass that message on to the town manager, so we'll be following up, so we'll look between the two, do that.
So pretty up because of dues and fees. They said, okay.
Right, this town clerk and her new office staff are a lot has changed in town clerk's offices with more modernization, and so they do need more training on computers and that kind of thing, so, I think that's gonna be the big part of it, and next year we'll see from a separate line, hopefully. I think that's it, is there a question?
Do you have a motion?
Motion. Okay, motion. I move that it accept the total is $317,573.
Second.
All right, Charlie, then Jennifer, then Michael.
Okay.
Yeah. Michael?
Nothing for me.
Anyone have any questions? All right, all in favor of? All in favor of 317,074 for the first budget, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Unanimous.
Okay. If we go to the board of registrars.
Can do elections?
Election. I think we have a breakdown of the, actually, this, last year, the Thomas and Jennifer, breakdown of the cost of the elections. County inspections, it takes. What, Julie mentioned to us, was that 50% of, in the last election, which was the presidential election, 50% of the people that voted by mail. So it's an increase in voting by mail, and that seems to be bottom line right now.
Although that does cause, she still has to print enough ballots for everybody. So there's still a lot of wastage, and she's required by law to print a minimum number of ballots based on how. So she's being very careful and staying at that minimum number, because she knows that half of them are gonna get tossed, most likely because of the vote by mail. There's nothing about that printing off.
And another thing that you notice when you got in your, the census slip, there's a slip in with the census asking if you want to mail in. That's actually, she's trying that out for the first time. If you remember, they were sending out postcards and then having it back. So she's trying to save on printing of the postcards in the mail, sending them out.
That's because there's always a catch. On the postcards, there was a barcode that they can easily scan to get into their computer system. By trying to save on the postcard, she will have to use more
Per data entry.
Right, but postage is expensive, and so she's hoping that that's not reflected here yet, that hopefully over time she'll be able to cut back on the postage.
Piece of paper.
Yeah. So I think she's looking to do anything like that, but you know, any ideas she's looking to for savings.
Another thing she's trying out, now in this budget cycle, we only do one election, every town election. This is the last budget cycle we had primary. Some of the less active precincts, trying to combine it into one ward rather than people can try it or short, and, not having as many.
Given that we know that 50% of Arlington is voting down now. Some of these, she said, some precincts, you only get 100 people to vote in 12 hours.
In presidential?
Wow.
But during the day,
But-
they're opening the mail-in ballots and running them through the same machines.
One opens the balance, they deliver to each person.
Right.
So, so anyway, these are some of the questions that, some of you folks have asked us to look into. And, yeah, they do not rent, there used to be rental for outside property during election, but they do not rent that property anymore. But the Park Avenue Conservation Church, they don't have that, it's precinct 20, they moved it.
Right, so that came off the lists when we're comparing the categories, but also came off with poll worker salaries. That's because she moved that to salaries, right? So, that's why there's not a separate line item for poll worker salaries anymore. Right. Just put that in there.
Another thing that happened, some of the poll workers, receive $15 an hour, and some volunteer. So it's hard to keep track of, when you say, well, I need 4 people, we might have 3 getting paid and 1 volunteering, or we might have 2 volunteering, and that changes every election. Some people volunteer, and the next time they do it, they want to be paid. Because it's Saturday for 12 hours, it's just stuff like that.
The contracted services, professional services line used to be called under the old system, other purchase services. This is constables and the programming of the tabulators. So that's. And it's lower this year because there's only 1 talent, so there's less to do there. Everything else. The voting machines and equipment, that's, we're seeing the numbers go up. That's because all the poll pads have kicked in for when she bought them, we got a year or 2 free. The deal was to buy them, they're now all kicked in, so we're replacing the full cost of those. Is the explanation on that one.
Motion. I'll make a motion that we accept the election total of 1160, roll please.
Second. Question, Alabama.
I might have misheard, did you say something about the stenographer moving?
Yes, those numbers that, what's now called advertising and consulting, consulting is the stenographers. The numbers just, she hasn't, I don't believe she's changed the numbers from, right, well.
Wait, but is that the clerk budget or the elected?
No, the stenographers are, usually, she had told us last year, those are for town meeting, because you have to have, you're required to have them.
Okay, so contracted services is both the stenographer and the constable.
No, the constable is under contracted services, professional services,
And where's the stenographer?
consulting.
Consulting, okay.
And I will say, the town manager's office did say that with the new titles and all these things, if we have, there might be changes next year based on where the categories, if it doesn't seem to be in the right category, since it's new this year, so things might still double between categories now.
Other questions, John?
Just confirming, so the significant drop in salaries, that's because of a few on election, few poll workers. It's a nice number.
And it can change though, right, if there's a special election called. So it's not,
And another question that was, like this one. The state reimburses or sends back a dollar amount the general fund for a certain election, there's more money comes back on, say, the state election or the national election. Not a lot of money comes back on a regular town election, depending, and that's not set by any lessons. Whatever the state decides to send back, but it comes back to the general fund, not the election.
That's saying that might not be significant because there's less money coming back somewhere as well.
Right. Although it could be, because we just come from, they haven't received money for the presidential election or the primary.
And it's all based on the times your polls are open, because they want you open long, you know, there's a whole formula, and she submits what she thinks. She submits to the state, and based on how much money there is, she doesn't know if she'll get 100% back or 80% back. And she doesn't see the money come back and it's leave it all fun. So there's no.
Yeah, so the stenographer is for town meeting?
Yes.
Yes,
Didn't we vote to get rid of that?
you can't.
Oh, we got an article wrong.
Yeah, we did. At town meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah,
because the meeting is recorded.
I don't think it passed.
Yeah, I don't think it passed.
I don't remember it passing.
Maybe it didn't pass.
Damn it.
I guess you did, did you get that?
Yeah, you said this, but I just didn't get it. So the printing is printing and postage, right?
I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry, the printing line is printing and postage?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, and that's then just for the cards, it's not for, ballots? Or is it for ballots as well?
It has to, it's everything.
It's ballots included, right,
And-
okay.
Right, so some printing is in her office. I don't remember which is where, but she prints the postcards, so in her office, there's also purging of the photo rolls, if they haven't been active, and she has to notify them.
Right.
So there's all sorts of different mailings that have to go out.
And just big picture question, did we design the ballots, or is that designed, let's see, okay. Okay. And then the second big picture question, the 79,000, for the updating, is that a 1 year?
CDBG, that, right, what she explained to us is when she did her application, she told them, we have gobs of old records that we can digitize, and she said, give me what you can, and we'll get done by section, because it's all the same, so she doesn't have to go out, so she will just keep applying.
So there's gonna potentially be more things, okay, is that it? So I've been a warden, and I do know that, putting the ballots coming by mail, it's a pretty efficient process. So I commend the clerk for thinking ways to streamline things.
The one thing she bore up was the time clock. More right up.
Yes. Is there a chance of a special election for an override in this fiscal year?
Well, we don't know.
That would include.
Not this fiscal year.
Alan?
The actuals have quite a bit of overtime, but there's nothing in the budget, is that baked in salaries?
Yes, there was overtime in 2024 and zero budgeted that year, and that was because there was an added election, I believe that year, there was an override special election.
Okay. So
So it's-
that's
yeah.
overtime only for. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, we have a motion to approve this budget for $160,250. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous. Do you have anything else?
Okay, go to record size.
Putting us all for staying there, could have had all the buttons too.
All right, take it away.
I don't think there's much on, there wasn't anything on salaries. On expenses, The data processing used to be the line called repairs, which is also the typewriter, because there's still one for that position. The printing, this is where actually the census, this particular printing is the census and the postcards for inactive, deleted, they go out every 2 years. And they also print the street lists.
The true list.
The true list, there you go.
And they do that both, true list done alphabetically and also by precinct and streets.
And that data processing fee, the budget's now at 0 because the 500 went, she added it back on the last budget, just combined all those repairs for those machines over there. Right, and printing went up as she continues cleaning up the voter lists, so they will hopefully go down, the printing will go down as things get more cleaned up in that office. There are fewer people to have to mail things to.
Okay. So I'll make a motion that we accept from the Board of Registrars $78,934.
Second. Any questions?
If the town clerk becomes the employee, is it possible to merge this department into the town clerk?
I think
It is
in the
Look at,
document.
if you look at the water, the registrar, she is the registrar of voters, the town clerk is. If you look at the
She's
salary.
one of the registrars.
Oh, yeah.
So it really is all her. She did, it's just separated out to different departments, but it's all one.
But she is registered, she gets the highest stipend of $1,500. The others, the registrars are part-time, stipend of $500.
Right.
So it is,
Awesome.
well,
Like-
it's the same.
It is one department.
It is
Oh,
one.
yeah.
One runs the register office and the other basis works in town.
Right, she manages it, even though she's on here just as a registrar and not as the top employee, she doesn't manage all of this, she only does the budget for it. So I don't think you gain anything,
You know-
merging it all into one in one budget would actually skew how we're looking at things, so it separates it out.
Okay.
And this is where the moderators stipend gets.
Yes, yes.
Any other questions? Ms. Butler? All right, all in favor of approving the registrar's budget to be $78,934, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Unanimous.
Your line is not complete.
Yes, we have.
We have two more budgets, we have one that we have to, hold off until, next time. And that's it. We have the manager's budget, and we have the planning budget, and the legal budget, we need to call
All right, so managing budget,
Yeah, if you want to do the manager's budget tonight, if it's coming in case anybody has questions.
it's up to you, I hold it or do you wanna?
Yeah, okay, we can go for it. Okay,
Page 29. After that.
So on the salary detail. Oh, man. I think everybody is aware, understands the difference between those that get steps or no steps. And if they're in management, the second half of the management grid, is a 2% anchor. Like that, we can answer questions if there are any questions on the numbers. We did, do you pay attention to the steps when you do your budgets? Because we did catch, that one of the steps had changed. more than expected, and it turns out there was a mistake in last year's and they fixed it on this year's. So I think this year they've been really paying attention to this stuff, so hopefully if you see anything, it's because it's a fix from previous years, which is as a reminder that we should be watching steps. And it gets confusing because some are mid-year, so some change and some stay the same through the fiscal year. There was a question on the CPA offsets that was emailed to us, and that is 20% from the budget coordinator and 20% of the operations, the coming under the operations for CPA work. So budget coordinator and deputy town manager for operations each spend time for the CPA. So that's the offset for the time they spend there. The ARPA offset is bundled with the other offsets. And that is for the ARPA position that is currently vacant, but they received 44 applications and they've narrowed it down to 8 applications. They had to obligate the money by December 31st, 2024 for the federal government, so that number is set. And there will be an offset for fiscal year 26 and for the first half of fiscal year 27. These numbers are reported to the federal government, and they did calculate roll-in and step anticipated for the next fiscal year when they did their numbers. It all has to be spent by December 31st, 2026.
And then it goes away.
That's the position.
Goes away, unless they decide.
That's all questions until after they present the budget.
It's on, it's appointed.
Are you not ready for questions or just?
Let me check on the expenses. I don't think there's anything too surprising other than what we previously mentioned in our cyber talk of the other unclassified expenses. The reason the actual for 2024 was so high was there were 2 reasons. They posted positions on Indeed and LinkedIn, and the way that actually works is they didn't know how much that was going to cost them until they see the number of applicants is how you get charged. And it ended up costing a lot more than they expected for that. And so they learned from that and how they will use it in the future, but much more targeted and be more careful in how they use it. Unfortunately, they went through that process, spent the money, hired the person, and that's the budget coordinator that was here last year, just stayed a very short period of time. So it wasn't a worthwhile experience, but they learned from it. So, and the rest of that was the cyber issue and the third-party body with the policy, update policies for the town. So, I think we're open for questions.
Do you have a motion?
You want a motion? Sure, okay. I move that we accept the 787,888. Second.
My question I have is there a plan for what happens to the work that the communications coordinator is doing the next position?
The communications coordinator? No, we didn't ask specifically that, and it wasn't there before, I don't think.
Right, it was created.
It was created
there, and we told them when that goes away, position.
Right, and I think that's understood.
Position to go.
Right, that's understood now. Let's see.
Annie and then Chuck.
So the ARPA money, that's on a reimbursement basis. We have that money in our possession, yes.
I believe so. But it, it's, yeah, right, it's for
No,
that.
I get it. We need to spend it, get the report on it. My concern would be federal money in possession.
My understanding is that
It was committed,
it's committed.
but that's how I was saying. Okay. We'll all find out.
Right, we can ask what's in the big account. Well, we can ask when he's here too, but, and then I will say that the website support services line item and expenses, I know some of you had questions about that one. That's for contracts for improvement to accessibility on the website and, the contract for website support. So those are two ongoing contracts, and the numbers are tied to.
So my question would be, why isn't that under IT? Because that's like a technical solution that could be.
You know, I had the same question why it wasn't under IT. I think it's because it's been managed, at first it was for accessibility issues, and the town manager put it under his budget. A warning also for all of us in the future, the contract, will be going up on that too, because they've been acquiring smaller companies. And so they're expecting that once the provider is acquired all the smaller companies, they're gonna
Sure.
up the price on those.
But increase sideways.
The website is a communications issue. It's like advertising. It's not a, county or, and we have a general public. Communications issue, we have a communications coordinator. Yeah, communications officer. So the website support services and the communications officer will get.
Yeah, there's some history to this.
Yes, so several years ago, we adopted a finance committee policy that we wanted applications to fall under the person who uses them. Because what was happening was, from a budgetary standpoint, not a control standpoint, when you had crossing, like the person using it wasn't the person whose budget was under, the budget either spiraled out of control or it got really contracted and squeezed. And so like we wanted, for example, the unit system to be under the comptroller, even though the comptroller is aware that security issues obviously intertwine with IT. But just from a budget perspective, we wanted them to own.
Yeah, budgetary makes sense. Stewardship, it's probably safer to have it all into one place.
Which it is.
For practical, right, I think for operating practical purposes, IT deals with all of it, but the town,
Alright.
unless the town manager makes sure that it exists, that there's funding for it, that, he's responsive to what citizens are wanting as far as, especially I think with accessibility and disability issues and all that, to make sure that.
Right, you know, I'm just saying that there's certain standards that you want to adhere to for your accessibility, that you don't create certain vulnerabilities. And so it's gonna be important to have someone that understands that, manage it.
Other questions? We have a motion that's been seconded. All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Unanimous. We are running out of time, so it is something simple like doing the minutes. And wrap it.
We'll be ready when we need to plug in time, we've got Dan kind of planning and ready, ready to run.
And we develop.
Okay, thank you. All right, the minutes of June 12. Has everyone had a chance to look at them? And is anyone have any corrections? All right, there are motion to approve the minutes June 12.
Motion to approve the minutes of June 12th.
Second.
All in favor, say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? All those in favor, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeses. Any noes? Abstention. 1, 2, 3 abstentions. Or abstain. Did you get that, Tara?
No, but I don't need, I guess I don't need to list everyone's name. Usually I list who abstains, but yeah, okay. I would actually like it if you could just, yeah, people abstain, just hold them up for a second, thanks.
All right, Alan Jones, as abstaining, Michael Woodman, Chuck Carney.
No, sorry.
Right, so abstentions, Michael, Chuck, Paul, Jennifer, and myself.
So not Alvin.
Right.
Right, sorry.
So 4, okay, yeah, thanks,
I was voting.
okay.
All right, that is it for tonight, got a lot done, I appreciate it. We are meeting at the police station on Wednesday. Primarily, the meeting will be picking up for the discussion of the town manager. We're back here, right? Monday, we're back here. And then next Wednesday, we're back in the police station, that's where we should be staying.
Oh,
For the duration.
Can I just make a little note? So I'm not gonna be here on Wednesday, so if anyone can get there early to help move the tables, that would be very helpful. And, I guess Christine's probably gonna need to have someone take minutes as well.
Someone, you don't volunteer, I appreciate it. All right, then we can adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, all in favor, say yes.
Yes.
We're good. Thank you.
So I didn't hear that in the story about the.